Welcome to Three Count Theater. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we've been talking about The Batman from 2022. There will be spoilers. I don't see a point of doing a review if there will not be spoilers. I really had no interest in seeing this movie, and then I was kind of badgered into seeing it. So I went to go see it, and I mostly enjoyed it. I think it was a little too long, but I have a lot of notes. I'm not going to read my notes word for word, just kind of give a general idea. So generally speaking, this is a crime movie, and Batman is a detective. So it's pretty smart. It's not a superhero beat 'em up. Batman is a detective. He is not a god. He is also not a ninja, both of which we've seen a lot. But this is also not a very comic booky movie. This is Comics Meet Seven. Seven, the old movie with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. It's a lot of that in here. Batman's origin and reason for existing is kind of told through exposition. It's not actually shown, which is a good thing, considering a lot of the previous Batman movies, especially if they're new reboots of the genre or of the character, usually have a knack of retelling Batman's origin story as if we know too much about it. The best thing about this movie is that it makes Gotham feel like a complete world. All these characters exist in the same reality. They all talk to each other. They have conversations. They mingle with one another, except for the Riddler, for obvious reason. And we'll get into the Riddler in a moment. But this was the first time I really watched a Batman movie, and it felt like Joker and Riddler and Penguin and all these guys actually exist at the same time in this movie. Unlike in the Nolan Batman movies, where it kind of felt like Bane didn't exist until the Joker was gone, where it didn't feel like the Joker existed until Ra's al Ghul was gone. Now it feels like all of these characters exist in Gotham at the same time. And it was an interesting thing. Like, I was kind of disappointed when I thought that Gotham was basically just going to be New York City. I was like, ugh, with the big it's not just the skyscrapers, but the billboards. And I was just in Gotham Square Garden. I was like, oh boy, it's just New York City. So I can just be ready for all the wokeness of New York City. And it did come in, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I love the corruption of Gotham. It's always been an underrated piece of the Batman mythos. And to me, it's probably the most important piece outside of Batman himself is how corrupt Gotham is. And that's really what this movie is about. It's about the absolute endemic corruption of Gotham. And that Gotham is such a broken city that it needs a Batman in order to clean it up. Carmine Falcone and the Penguin are two of the villains in this movie. They are both fantastic. Carmine Falcone, I forget who plays him, but I've seen the guy in other TV shows and movies. He is really good. These guys come across like mob figures. The Penguin is nowhere near Danny DeVito's Penguin from Batman Returns. Colin Farrell plays the character as far less cartoonish and more like Al Capone. He is the sidekick to Carmine Falcone in this movie. So we get to see the rise of the Penguin. We see Penguin as basically the right-hand man of Carmine Falcone. He runs the Iceberg Lounge. And this is a mob hangout where all of the corrupt police officers and everyone is hanging out. DeVito's Penguin was very gross and cartoonish. He ate fish, he waddled, he was fat, he was gross, he, slobbered and I love Batman Returns, but that was a very comic book movie. This was a more realistic incarnation of the Penguin. He didn't even have the big cartoonish nose, no monocle. He seemed like a fat dude mobster. That's essentially what he was. They also seemed to drop his actual name. His name is Oswald Cobblepot, but they didn't use his name. They just kept calling him Oz. So he was referred to either as Penguin or Oz, and that was it. The absurdity of Oswald Cobblepot was kind of kept away from the American public. So if you didn't know that his name was Oswald Cobblepot, you wouldn't have learned it from this movie. And what I loved about Carmine Falcone and the Penguin is Colin Farrell, who plays the Penguin. For starters, he's almost unrecognizable and under all of the makeup. It is absolutely fantastic. But he's clearly doing his best De Niro impersonation in this movie, and he's really good at it. While Carmine Falcone is doing Al Pacino. and it's fantastic. You know, it's like having Pacino and De Niro in the same movie without having De Niro and Pacino in the movie. They just, if you watch it close enough, you can see that they take characteristics from both of them and import that into this movie, and it's really fun. Now, Carmine Falcone is an important part into the Batman mythos in this movie, as he is deeply involved in the death of the Wayne family. They talk about Salvador Maroni a lot in this movie. He doesn't exist. I think he's already dead. Now, Falcone or Maroni, I think it was Falcone, ended up killing the Wayne family. The Waynes being killed in a mob war, it's all right. I mean, I don't exactly hate it, but I do hate that Thomas Wayne was corrupt. I hate that. We can talk all day about my hatred of whoever imported that. I haven't read a lot of Batman comics. A lot of Batman comics exist, and I haven't sat down and read them all. So I don't know who first introduced the concept of Thomas and Martha Wayne being corrupt politicians or whatever, instead of, you know, good old philanthropists who the city was so corrupt that nobody could even find out who killed them. In this situation, you know, Thomas Wayne kind of was like, hey, he went to Carmine Falcone to fix a problem for him. And Falcone, you know, put him in his pocket. And then he found out, oh no, Thomas Wayne won't play ball, so he killed him. It was like, I don't know about that. I don't like the Waynes are corrupt. I hate that. I hate anything that has to do with that. It seems very, I don't know, it seems ugly and awful to me. Of course, they tried to cover it up by being a mistake, but I didn't really care for that. I loved Alfred. Alfred was pretty good in here. He came across as not so much as a butler, but as I think they played down the father figure Alfred in this movie, even though they kind of did add bits and pieces of that. They played it down a little bit, and Alfred didn't come across as a sidekick, but he came across as somebody who, yeah, you could see how Batman came to be a detective, because Alfred's pretty good at this stuff too. You know, he was helping figure out some of the puzzles and, you know, that kind of stuff. So it was good. He was there as emotional support for Batman, which is what Alfred is really good for until, you know, you get the Robins a little bit later. So Alfred as emotional support was really good. And I think that the guy who played Alfred was really good too. He looked like a tough, grizzled Alfred and not a more dignified Alfred that you see in other movies. This guy came across like he was a man in a war before. You know, I think he had a cane, he had scars on his face, he was withered and old. So we got, you know, a tougher Alfred in this movie. And it kind of plays into the modern love of Alfred and messing around with Alfred and making him part of the story, which is good, you know. Now, I know I haven't talked about Robert Pattinson as Batman, but he was quite good too. He's socially awkward, he's terse, he's intense. Again, don't like the whole Thomas Wayne was corrupt, and not sure I care about the whole vengeance thing. Batman's first words in the movies were, I am vengeance. And even certain people refer to him as Vengeance, like Catwoman, who is never called Catwoman. But he is also never called Batman. He is called Vengeance throughout the entire movie for no reason. The only person who really calls him Batman is the Riddler. And it's kind of implied that he is Batman. Now, speaking of Catwoman, I think her name is Zoe Kravitz. She was actually pretty good as Catwoman. She was sexy. She was smart. She used both in service to the story. The whole bisexuality of the character, which I know a lot of people was tripping about, is more implied than stated outwardly. She had a relationship, or she was helping out the female who was supposed to be like, who worked in the Iceberg Lounge, had overheard some information that she shouldn't have known, and she was killed for it. And Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman refers to a lot of people as Baby and Hun. And I know that was a whole thing about, you know, she called the female character Baby. And people were like, oh no, that means she's gay. It's like, well, she called Batman Hun. She referred to as other people as Hun, or which is short for honey. It's like, that's kind of typical of older women. You know, older women always call people baby and honey. And it seemed like they ported that language into Catwoman. But it was fine. It wasn't overdone, I think. I'm kind of, like I said, I think I said this on a different channel, but I'm I'm kind of done with the Batman Catwoman relationship. I think that too much Batman media focuses a lot on Catwoman. I think she was necessary here, as she played a vital role in infiltrating the Iceberg Lounge because she already worked there, because she was setting up a heist. And that's the one thing I think that kind of pissed me off about the whole Catwoman thing. She wasn't a thief in this movie. She was stealing from the Penguin, but she wasn't like a professional thief that you would think the Catwoman would be. She was more of a she was working in the Iceberg Lounge to sort of case the joint for the heist, and she was going to rob the drug deal. And ended up finding her friend dead, even though we pretty much knew she was dead already. So it wasn't like Catwoman was like a cat burglar breaking into everybody's house. She broke into one house and she stole one sack of money, or she tried to steal one sack of money and got busted both times. So they kind of played down her criminal past in this flick. So the Riddler. So the Riddler was controversial in his portrayal, for reasons we'll talk about a little bit later. They abandoned a lot of the cartoonish nature of the Riddler. For instance, his name is not Edward Enigma in this movie. His name is Edward Nashton, which I think is his actual name in the comics. But Mr. Enigma, Mr. E, Mystery, Enigma, that, the Jim Carrey version of the Riddler, it's nowhere near that. Jim Carrey's version of the Riddler was not really all that good anyway. And it came across more like a Joker, which I guess is what some people kind of think the Riddler is. I think the Riddler is sort of another version of the Joker. He's not, so, but the Riddler's riddles works here. I love the Riddler's riddles. He was great in this movie. I'm trying to remember what story that was where the Riddler was sort of a bomber. I think it was Batman Year One. Was it? No, it might not have been Year One. I think it was written by Jeff Johns. I'm pretty sure. But the Riddler was sort of like a mad bomber in that movie, or in that book rather, and you had to figure out his riddles or the things would explode. They kind of played that up here, where there's a more realistic incarnation of the Riddler. I did not like all the social media stuff though. The Riddler on Twitter, and the Riddler he's basically a Redditor. It's absolutely awful. I did like that both Batman and the Riddler are fighting corruption within Gotham. They're just looking at it from different perspectives. So you have Batman who's looking at blue collar corruption, which are thieves, murderers, rapists, those kinds of guys. And the Riddler is looking at white collar political corruption. He's studying how different families in Gotham are connected to the mob, how the mob is connected to the police, and all that sort of stuff. And he's trying to expose that. While Batman is in the dark. And both of them are in the dark. The Riddler, you don't know who he is through most of the movie. And you're trying to figure out, what's the next connection? What's the next person? What's the next piece that's going to fall? Because the Riddler is telling a story. He's telling a story throughout the movie about the corruption of Gotham and where it begins and how far does it reach, and including people who ended up being dead already. So I did like that. The Riddler, when they dropped his origin, which was far too late in the movie as far as I'm concerned, even though it was important that they dropped his origin, the idea of him being sort of a boring forensic accountant who fell into knowledge about the corruption of the city through the Renewal Program, which we'll talk about in a momentarily. The Riddler works as a mundane guy driven mad, and it works as a serial killer origin. A lot of serial killers tend to be ordinary guys who are just kind of nutty, and but the Riddler seemed like more of a guy who was sort of pushed to this point. So the Riddler is a radicalized Redditor of sorts. There's a lot of subtext there too, but we'll get into there in a moment. So there's a plot twist that the Riddler is trying to kill Bruce Wayne. He's the last piece to fall, is Bruce Wayne. And he wants to kill Bruce Wayne as the sins of the father shall be visited upon the son, which is, of course, biblical. And as he's captured, we learn that the Riddler is sort of jealous of Bruce Wayne. That he believes that Bruce Wayne is not a real orphan. He's a real orphan. That real orphans live 30 to a room. That they were, cold and hungry, and every year a child died. Those are the real orphans of Gotham. not the rich, pompous, living in a tower Bruce Wayne. And there was a nice twist here because he kept saying Bruce Wayne to lead you to believe that the Riddler knows who Batman is. And then the twist is he doesn't know, and he thinks that Batman is one of the guys who follows him on their subreddit or whatever you want to call it, social media thing. He has like 500 subscribers. No, he's following no one. And he's constantly being told, he's being guided by all of these people over what kind of stuff to get. They're telling him what kind of mask to wear, how he can make bombs. So you learn how the Riddler was able to do what he did, even though he was a forensic accountant. You learn that he's being radicalized through other voices on the internet. Other people are telling him, hey, this is what you should do. This is what kind of mask you should wear. This would be a good place to do, place this bomb. This would be a good place to put that bomb. So you learning that the Riddler is, he is a concoction of a lot of different people's, their understandings or their expertise. These people, this guy knows how to make bombs. So he's telling the Riddler how to make bombs or how to put the bombs together and where to place them and all that kind of stuff. So he thinks that Batman is a guy like him. And that's the big twist for the Riddler is he figures out that Batman isn't helping him. He thought Batman was trying to help him. And he finds out after he's captured that Batman's not helping him. And I thought, okay, this movie is very good at this point. I was like, okay, this is sweet. The Riddler thinks that Batman is helping him because Batman is out there trying to expose corruption. He's not corrupt. Commissioner Gordon is in this movie. He's played very well by the guy whose name I forget. He played the stressed out last good man in Gotham very well. And I love that I shouldn't say I love it. I thought it was interesting that the Commissioner Gordon Batman relationship was sort of out in the open. That pretty much Batman walks into a crime scene, even though the police don't really like that he's there. It's not a secret that Commissioner Gordon is working with Batman. And I figure I don't know about that. I don't know about that one, but it was what it was. All right. So now we get to talk about let's talk about the Renewal Program before we get into some of the wokeness of it. So the Renewal Program is a program that was created by Thomas Wayne before he died. The program was supposed to be for helping orphans and, social programs and all this stuff. So after Carmine Falcone kills Thomas Wayne, the program is left to the city and it is raided by all of the ne'er-do-wells of the town. So, the new mayor, the police chief, everybody has their hands in this money and there's no oversight. So they're, using it to commit bribes and to do big payoffs. And it's a corruptive force in the city. And throughout the movie, you see different things saying renewal is a lie, and the Riddler is always triggered by lies. And you'll see how the Renewal Program was started, but it was never finished. It's a 20-year-old program that's really kind of fed the corruption of the city at this point. And the Riddler is radicalized by this after finding out that all of the elites essentially robbed the program and left nothing for the poor orphans of Gotham. And since the Riddler is one such youth, he commands sort of an army of the same. They're all nameless, faceless, disaffected white males. So now we get to talk about some of the wokeness of the movie. The wokeness, now it's Hollywood, it's modern Hollywood, but it's not beating you over the head with the disaffected, woke white males of the Riddler and his gang of sorts. But it's pretty damn obvious what they were trying to tell you through this movie, that there is a subtext of disaffected, put upon white males who are victimized by the city, by people like the Wayne Foundation, by the police, by everyone. And essentially they want revenge because they feel like they're the real princes of Gotham. They were the kids who Gotham left behind, and they're the ones who are going to make Gotham pay. So the movie went exactly too long. The moment I realized this and saw that the Riddler was just one of many nameless, faceless, white males who want to shoot a black woman running for mayor in Gotham. I was kind of like, oh my God, bro. Of course, they killed the white male mayor because he was dirty. They killed him early in the movie. Now, the black woman who was running for mayor, she actually ends up winning. I mean, it was pretty easy once her competition got killed, right? But she ends up winning. She gets shot by one of the disaffected white males who followed the Riddler. And she survives, of course. Now, they named her Bella Real, R-E-A-L, so Bella Real. And the Riddler is triggered by the whole concept of wanting real change in Gotham. And that, now they don't believe that she's going to bring in any real change. And they're saying, okay, we're done with this. We're done playing around with this whole change thing. There's not going to be any change. So we're going to destroy Gotham. And that's a pretty big plan. Like it gets, once the master plan is sort of unveiled that he's going to flood Gotham and have all of his Riddler, I guess, subredditors shoot up Gotham Square Garden and murder a bunch of innocent people, including the new mayor. You're kind of like, okay, we're going too far. Like we've gone far overboard. This movie is too long. And I was okay with, how they caught the Riddler, I think is some bullshit too. Cause it was like a woman saw a strange man running from this house and he's sitting at the coffee shop. And, it was like one lone dude in the coffee shop. He looks very weird. He's very mousy. He's wearing glasses and he's in there by himself and they just arrest the first guy that they see. And of course his coffee has like the question mark in the phone, which is actually pretty cool. This is when they try to figure out what his name is, and they don't know what his name is. And he has 2 different IDs. So they're trying to show you that it doesn't really matter what the Riddler's name is, even though they do tell you his name is Edward Nashton. So the disaffected white males of Gotham, when you look at the story, you see that almost all of the heroic characters, such as Gordon and Catwoman, are race swapped. Zoe Kravitz is mixed, and now Commissioner Gordon is black. So all of the villainous characters in the movie are white. All of them. And they're all male. All of them are white males. There's no black orphans in Gotham, apparently, that were pissed off by and helped the Riddler do anything. So, it was all the police officers who are not corrupt are Hispanic or black. Almost all of the corrupt police officers are white males. And that's not something that's stated in the movie. That's something that's shown to you that you have to pay attention to. When you see all of the district attorneys and the police officers or whatever that are corrupt, there are no corrupt females, for instance, in Gotham. There were no female victims of the Riddler at all. They were all male. So you look at it and you say all of the villains, all of the corrupt individuals in Gotham are white males. And the Riddler himself is so it follows through the feminist argument that the incel, which I guess the Riddler would technically be, if you want to say that there was that the Riddler and his community are an analog for the incel community, because they kind of are. That these people, they suffer under the patriarchy, and because they suffer under the patriarchy, their problem is really with other white males. And you see that in this movie, and you could tell that a feminist minded director is what made this movie, because you see that, again, none of the villains are black or Hispanic. All of them are white. And you see that all of the heroes, the people who are trying to effect real change in Gotham, all of them are white. I mean, all of them are black or Hispanic. The mayor, she represents real change. Bella Real, right? She's black. Catwoman, she wants to expose Carmine Falcone. She wants to kill Carmine Falcone, who, twist, is her father. And I didn't really care for that. But she's trying to kill Carmine Falcone and expose steal from the Penguin. She's also black. And Commissioner Gordon, the last real police officer in Gotham that's not corrupt, he's also black. But everybody else, white. So, all in all, the movie is actually pretty good. I don't really have a problem with anything that took place, except for I think the movie was a little too long. Near the end, Batman says that vengeance isn't going to save Gotham, that he has to be a symbol of hope. And I thought that was an interesting scenario. It actually shows that Batman learned something throughout this movie without him changing. He's still Batman. He's still doing what he does, except for, his anger is sort of, he realizes as he's fighting one of the Riddler's goons. And when he's unmasked and the police ask him, "Who are you?" And the Riddler's goon says, "I am vengeance," which is the exact words that Batman says at the beginning of the movie. Batman realizes that he is much like the Riddler, and the Riddler was right, that they do seem to have a lot in common as disaffected white males of Gotham. The difference is, obviously Bruce Wayne has a father figure in Alfred, and he has hundreds of millions of dollars due to his family being rich. So he has to be something different because he sees what anger and vengeance and being upset gets you. It turns you into the Riddler, and people like the Riddler and his subredditor community, or whatever the hell you want to call it. So he decides to change and become Hope. Okay, that's fine. I didn't hate that idea. They often do the story of the villain and the hero have similar goals or similar ideals or come from a similar background. They just take different paths. That's sort of a common storytelling trope. So the movie, all in all, was pretty good. I just think that it was probably too long. I went into the theater at 2:00. I didn't come out till 5:30. I couldn't tell you between the commercials and the length of the movie. I think the movie might have been 2 hours and 30 minutes, maybe, because it might have been like an hour of commercials for other movies. So the movie was fine. Where does it rank? It ranks, I don't know. Like, I think I liked it better than obviously the more cartoonish Batman and Robin or Batman Forever. Those movies are awful. Would I put it on the same level as The Batman? As Batman 1989. Batman 89 is so good. I can't do that. What about Nolan's Batmans? These feel like they could exist alongside the Nolan's Batmans. Except for they're even more realistic than Nolan's Batmans, So I'm not sure where I would place it. It wasn't a traditional superhero beat 'em up. It was more of a detective story, more of a crime story. And that tells us a lot about the strength of Batman as a character. Now, as far as the inspirations, so let's say you wanted to read some of the comic books, it seems to have a lot of The Long Halloween in it. The Long Halloween is a story about, Carmine Falcone. It's probably one of the more definitive Carmine Falcone stories of the Batman mythos. It's by Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb. You also have, it seems to have a little bit of Batman Hush in it too. The Hush elements are that somebody who actually knows a lot about Bruce Wayne, another orphan of Gotham, he is going around basically driving Batman crazy. So it seems to have a little bits of Hush and a little bit of The Long Halloween. So there is some elements there that I really enjoyed. I love the music. I think the music added a lot to the movie. The thudding of Batman's boots in the movie, because he wears like very heavy like motorcycle boots in this movie, and when he walks, it's like dunk, dunk, dunk. He sounds like he's 500 pounds, and there's some elements to that is pretty good, because it does have a little bit of an intimidation factor. I did like the fight scenes. There was no fight scene between Riddler and Batman. And then that was very smart, by the way. And they told the story, as after the Riddler got, arrested, that he's not physical. He's like, all of my power is in here. And this would make them think that him and Batman are working together, that Batman is smart, but also has the physical element, while the Riddler only has the mental element. So he's like, we're helping each other here. You beat up these guys. I'm, attacking them from behind with trench tools and stuff like that, carpentry weapons, and in order to, get them down and stuff like that. So that was fine. Cobblepot was amazing in this movie, and I can't wait to see the next incarnation of the Riddler. I mean, not the Riddler, but the Penguin. And which, well, no doubt there will be a sequel, and I want to see more of Colin Farrell's Penguin. Now a lot of people, if they want to ask the question, is the Joker in the movie? The answer is yes. The Joker is at the very, very end. He is talking to the Riddler in jail. So the Joker is already in jail in this movie. There seems to be another incarnation of the Joker. So they're not going to they're going to create a whole new Joker. He even seems to have new makeup and a new character. He also seems a lot younger. Like this might be a younger version of the Joker. And it seems like they may continue with the whole kids from the orphanage are insane sort of story. Because we see that the Riddler is very upset because his master plan has been ruined, and he's talking to someone, or someone's talking to him, and he gets a riddle from this guy, and the riddle says, what's something, I think that the more you have, the less it's worth. And the Riddler, of course, figures out that it's a friend, and they laugh, and the Riddler is laughing, and the Joker is laughing, and then the movie kind of goes off. So the Joker is in the movie, but he's in prison. The Penguin was arrested but he's out. So we have a lot of fertile ground for sequels, and that's cool. I wouldn't mind a sequel, but I do want Hollywood to create new things eventually. I'm constantly rebooting Batman and Superman and stuff like that. It gets kind of old, but as long as, this is what I meant earlier about, there have been a lot of places for you to go with the Batman mythos and the Batman character. Is you can do the Batman God, you can do Bat God who can do anything, whatever. You could do Batman the Ninja, or you could do Batman the Detective, you could do Batman the Father. It's just, you could do a lot of good things there. The character is very flexible. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later.